Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears beat reporter Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar as we are joining you guys on Wednesday, the Wednesday after the Super Bowl. The football season is officially over, though. I think we all know that football never really leaves us. I've seen plenty of mock drafts, free agent stuff already, so the conversation has definitely moved on. But Joe, what were your thoughts? Kind of a snoozer of a game on Sunday. Obviously, the Seahawks won Super Bowl 60. I've heard plenty of conversations about the Drake May Caleb Williams conversation and debate again. But what were your thoughts about Super Bowl 60 and how things ended with the NFL season?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Velus Jones Jr. Good for him. He never got his just due here in Chicago. Can you believe this guy's got a Super Bowl ring? I mean, give me a break.
He downed two punts. He was kind of critical there. He downed two punts toward the end there. If the Bears had that, maybe he would have been still on the team.
The Seahawks coaching staff probably just told him, don't mess it up. Get out of the way, but good for him, I guess. And then, yeah, it was hard not to think, boy, how would the Bears be doing in this game? And I'll tell you what it says. I think not only for the Bears, but probably the rest of the 30 teams in the league, maybe not all of them, but they're thinking, you know what? We can go to the Super Bowl next year because neither of those teams, no offense to Seattle, good for them. They got a ring. They got the title. No one looked dominant. No one said, wow, this is Chiefs 2.0 starting now. I think it was kind of let's face it, it's a good Seattle defense. There's no question about it. But this is not, these are not your 2000 Ravens or your 85 Bears 40
Sure.
years later. But no offense to the Patriots, but I'm glad they didn't win because they shouldn't get another Super Bowl for at least 50 years, right? After everything they've won in the Brady dynasty and Belichick. So good for the Seahawks, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, I think I left the Super Bowl thinking the Bears aren't far off. I don't think. I think obviously there's a lot of stuff that needs to change. Obviously, you got to make big additions on the defense, and you got to support Caleb more with left tackle. And we'll spend the next few months going over everything that they need to do and whatever. But I think you leave that season kind of thinking, all right, the Bears aren't really far off from being Super Bowl contenders. And I think that's the biggest thing. You've got the coach, you've got the quarterback, you've got to figure out the defense because I know. Listen, I know it might have been a snooze fest, but you do need a defense to win a Super Bowl, and I don't think anyone has ever doubted that or said that. But I think you leave that Super Bowl kind of being like, okay, yes, the Seahawks were pretty dominant this season, but I don't think the Bears are too far off, and I think that's the biggest thing at this point. Where I will see what they do this offseason, but I think come the 2026 season, once we're in training camp and all that kind of stuff, depending on what they do, I wouldn't be surprised. And I've seen the power rankings. I've seen some people say that the Bears are the 11th best team, the third best team in the NFC North and all that kind of stuff. But I don't expect any big regressions. And I think you can start having the conversation about the Bears entering their contender window.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the defense today, and that's the biggest story going into next season and then throughout next season. How much can they improve it? Because if you look at the best defenses, they just don't turn it around in an off season with a couple key free agent signings or high draft picks. It's like the offense, like with the Bears offense. It's you got to start stacking those draft classes, and I don't know if the Bears have started yet. And now you got a secondary, which was your strength of your defense, that you have a lot of guys who might not be here next year for either, maybe you cut a guy like Jalen Johnson. Will we see that happen? Will you re-sign Brisker, Byard, both, neither? Even the other corners. So there's a lot of questions here. So how much can they rebuild this defense? And does Ryan Poles know what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, Ben Johnson, certainly a guy who, like, you could ask about Colston Loveland and Luther Burden and those guys, and Ben's going to know how to use him and say, yes, that's the guy. I don't know if we've seen that yet from Ryan Poles as far as ability to draft defensive. Not even stalwarts, just guys who are Pro Bowl caliber. Well, unless I'm missing someone obvious. I mean, Brisker and Gordon have been good picks, but neither's been to a Pro Bowl, and not that that's everything. But if you took a survey of guys or coaches or GMs or whoever around the league, guys who cover the league, I don't know how quickly the names of Brisker and Gordon come up. Oh, maybe Gordon when healthy, as far as being the tops at their respective positions.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of approach that, how much Dennis Allen is obviously involved. He was involved obviously last year, but I am curious to know. Obviously, last year it was very clear that the focus was on the offense. They made defensive additions, obviously, in free agency and in the draft as well, but it was very clear that revamping the offensive line and giving Caleb targets was, their top priority. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of looks a little bit here, and we'll hit on that later on here in the live stream. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you give us your comments, any thoughts about whatever we're talking about, any questions you might have as we enter the official NFL offseason. Give us a like there and subscribe as well. We really appreciate it. If you're joining us on Facebook, I see we got some like and loves as well, so give us appreciate the support. If you want to comment on Facebook, we'll see your comments and questions, so make sure you comment there. And if you're joining us on the podcast, thank you so much for joining us there. Make sure you subscribe and give us a rating. Joe, I want to hit on some housekeeping stuff here. Obviously, the big question after Declan Doyle left was who's going to be the offensive coordinator. On Monday morning, we learned, or Sunday morning, I should say, we learned from Ian Rappaport that he's reporting that Press Taylor will be elevated to the offensive coordinator role. The Bears, as of Wednesday, haven't confirmed that. And then Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune reported that Eric Studesville is coming back to the Bears as their running backs coach. Bears haven't officially announced either one. But Joe, what were your thoughts about both moves? They both kind of felt like, for Press Taylor, it kind of felt like, to me, it made the most sense just based on he was around last year as the passing game coordinator. He has offensive coordinator experience, obviously. He developed well with the Eagles. And then I know people get a little upset with how things kind of went down with the Jaguars when he was the OC there. But listen, he is been still the play caller, and I think it's really important for Caleb's development and for the offense's continuity to have someone who knows what to do, right? And I think that kind of is what you get here with Press Taylor, where Press gets an opportunity to kind of prove himself and gets an opportunity to kind of help the Bears continue the offensive success that they had last season.
Yeah, I agree. I think just what you said about continuity is important. I think you were trending upward at the end of the season. And so I don't think, unless there was some guy out there like we're just thrilled to finally get him on staff. We couldn't get him on staff last year. If there was that guy, that'd be one thing. But again, I'm going to just go with this stance that I think Ben showed he knows how to put together a staff last season, and showed that last offseason after he got the job. And so I'm going to trust him there, that he knows what he's doing. And that's a good feeling, isn't it? Where you're like, oh boy, they failed before, they'll probably fail again, because there's no reason to believe otherwise. But I think this seems right, and where you're not, and like you said, Ben calls the plays, it's his offense, but just someone you can get in there or retain in this case with Press Taylor, where he knows what's going on, and it's probably going to be a seamless transition, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would agree. I would assume. Press was doing a lot of this stuff anyways, right? Like, obviously he was helping with scouting and he was working through some stuff as a passing game coordinator and working with Caleb. So I would assume he's just going to take more responsibility of what Declan did last year, whether that's, it'll be interesting to see how much does he impact? A big thing that Declan did that the players talked about last week at the Super Bowl, that were at the Super Bowl with Cole, and I saw DJ and other guys, where those halftime adjustments really came from Declan, because he was the guy up in the sky and kind of seeing what defenses were doing, right? Like, so Ben was kind of focused in on the play calling and the the play-by-play thing where he kind of saw what defenses were presenting and that kind of stuff. So that'll be a really important part, and we'll see how Press kind of does in that role. Studsville, obviously, he's been around with the NFL for a long time. He's a veteran coach. I would assume that he will continue to do well here moving forward as he kind of takes over that running back room. Also, one more offseason thing we want to hit on. We haven't really talked about this during the season because it kind of felt, I don't know, we've got games to talk about. But obviously, with the offseason now, the Bear Stadium stuff is kind of getting more and more attention. Obviously, Northwest Indiana has been more involved now. They passed they passed the bill in the Senate that would create a commission that would find land and create an opportunity for the Bears to build in Northwest Indiana. Illinois lawmakers have taken that a little bit more seriously this year and are open to negotiating with the Bears. Today, I actually at showlocal.com put together like a timeline of all this ever since the Bears offered and put a bid to buy the Arlington Park land in 2021. And Joe, just going through the experience, it's kind of nauseating. There's so many twists and turns. You buy the land in Arlington Park, then you talk about the land in Arlington Park, and then Kevin Warren comes, and then other suburbs get involved because of the school district property stuff. Then you go back to the city, and then you go back to Arlington Park, and then there's tax uncertainty. Then you go to Northwest Indiana. It's kind of crazy that it's taken 6 years, because I think when we heard that Kevin Warren was going to come in, right, like it was pretty much like, all right, Kevin Warren was obviously trying to kind of bring a new style, like kind of get the mom and pop out of the Bears and kind of become like a modern, business. But a big reason why Kevin Warren came to Chicago was his work with the Vikings in US Bank Stadium. And, I wonder, Joe, I don't think he would ever say anything out loud, but how surprised he's been with how long this whole process has taken. Seems like we might have lost Joe there. So he seems like he's frozen up. But yeah, it'll be really
I
interesting.
lost you there for a second.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
There?
Yeah, I lost. You froze up or I froze up, one or the other. I think you were just about to ask me a question and then it froze. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I basically just asked you if you think Kevin Warren has kind of been surprised. He took over in, what was it, 2024, I think, or 2023, just surprised with how long this whole operation has taken.
Yeah, well, he's the one who said they were going to put shovels in the ground in 2025, right? That was, and it clearly didn't happen. And I don't know if he felt pressure, if he felt like, as far as his job is concerned, because this is what you were brought here basically to do. It wasn't to make football decisions on the field with personnel or anything like that. He was supposed to come in and be Mariano Rivera, as I think I referenced once before. He's going to close the deal, and it hasn't happened. And then all of a sudden, the threats to Indiana became real and are real. And maybe if this gets done, I think we'd all probably, I think I speak for the majority, see them in Arlington Heights, and that makes the most sense. But going to Indiana, man, that would have been ugly. I mean,
you think so?
Yeah. I mean, no offense to Indiana. I just think you should be in Illinois here. And that drive, shame on me. I could have easily Googled this. I don't know how far the drive from Soldier Field to that new stadium would be in Indiana, but it's got to be.
Well, it depends where. Like Rick's chiming in, and he's got the Hammond site is actually closer to Chicago than Arlington Heights is, and I would agree with that. Hammond is closer. Obviously, it's just across the border, so it's not that bad. Everyone else is. Gary's gotten involved, and now today I saw that Portage is throwing their hat into the ring. Obviously, everyone's just going to kind of get involved here, and everyone's got renderings, everyone's got thoughts and ideas and that kind of stuff. But
don't you think most of the fans who are going to the game are coming from the Chicago suburbs?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
North or west, south suburbs instead of Indiana. Now,
Indiana's probably closer for the south suburbs than Arlington would be.
Sure, absolutely. So I don't know. Then you hear Iowa getting involved. I don't know how legit that is.
That one seems like that I would That
that
just is kind of funny.
then you're not even the
There's
Chicago
no way
Bears
that's
anymore.
happening.
Yeah, you're not the Chicago Bears anymore.
No.
If that ever happened. So, but I think that would look bad on the state, the legislature, if the Bears left Chicago. So I think something you probably know better than me, Michael. That's probably going to happen now soon. Not like in June we're still talking about this. I think there'll be news here soon about what they're doing with the stadium, whether it's going to Arlington or accepting the Northwest Indiana deal. And I who was I heard that was it Northwest Indiana saying the Bears could possibly rent the stadium, or that's part of the deal, which is
I
interesting.
think
That's what the Chiefs are doing. They're moving to the other side of the border there. They're moving to Kansas, not far from where they're at, but they'll be renting. So I don't know. I just expect this to get done soon here, I think.
it'll get done soon, mostly because Indiana, I feel like, is putting the pressure on the Bears. Like, I don't think they're going
Yeah.
to. The thing with Indiana is, and I never expected in my sports career to learn about the Indiana legislature and its calendar and all that kind of stuff, but
Right.
that's kind of what comes with the job at this point. But I've learned through this whole process that the Indiana legislature actually only really meets for roughly a month here. So roughly by the end of February, like their quote unquote spring session is pretty much over. And they would need to have any sort of bill. It already passed the Senate. It would need to pass the House, obviously, and be signed into law by the Indiana governor. So I've heard, based on different reports, that the Indiana legislature wants the Bears to commit before they, put together this House bill. Like they want commitment before they actually do this thing, which I understand from them.
Yeah.
But so I think that'll put pressure on, because I think that the Bears are like now like, all right, Illinois, like what are we doing? Can we get tax certainty in Arlington Heights? Can we negotiate with Arlington Heights? Because I think this whole thing is so interesting, because I think if you take the emotions out of it, Northwest Indiana makes the most sense, right? I mean, they're basically going to build you a stadium that you rent for free. You get all the proceeds and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about property taxes. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And you don't have to use your own money to build it, right? And I think when you take the emotions out of it, you're kind of like, well, if you were a business owner, I think any of us would be like, yeah, I'm going to go where they're going to give us the free money and I don't have to pay property taxes. And all I have to do is, pay for the rent and that kind of stuff. And I get the proceeds. But I do think that, for George and the McCaskies, and we haven't heard them explicitly say this, but I do think there is a lot of pride, right, that comes to playing in Illinois, staying in Illinois, like being the charter franchise that, I know that, obviously the Bears started off in Decatur, and obviously then they moved to Chicago and they played at Wrigley Field and Soldier Field. And I don't think the Chicago argument is as strong, but I do get why people believe that Illinois, like the Bears need to stay in Illinois. And I think that's a big factor. I haven't talked to George about it, obviously, but I would assume with how much George values the history of his organization, of his franchise, um, that that has to be an important part of staying in Illinois for his legacy. And I could see that being a big factor in his decision to do it, because quite honestly, like the Arlington thing, like they're going to put in $2 billion to build the stadium. They want infrastructure help, but they don't want any other state help. It seems like, from what I've gathered, they want tax certainty, which I could understand. I think any business would want to not
Mhm.
pay $100 million in property taxes. I think they would want an agreement, it seems like, based on what the Cubs are doing or the Blackhawks and Bulls are doing, kind of closer to that. But I would guess that the Bears still really want to stay in Illinois.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the key word there, pride, right? You're the pride and joy of Illinois. Chicago Bears, bear down. Might have to change the theme song if they move. But that'd be big, and I'm like, go to Arlington Heights. That's where you should be. You're in Illinois. But then I think, once this stadium is built, whether it's in Northwest Indiana or Arlington Heights or Chicago or Iowa or wherever, you're, and if it's a dome, all you're going to care about is the product on the field and how beautiful this stadium is. So once they agree and commit to a site, and you see this beautiful stadium once it's built in 2035 or however long it's going to take. Let's
Sure.
hope not
Yeah.
that long. You, you're probably not going to care. You're going to care if you're a fan, you're a season ticket holder, how that affects your commute to and from. Certainly the commute to Soldier Field stinks. Once
It's
you get,
terrible.
as you know, once you get within a mile of Soldier Field, that's when, and you could, the drive into the city is fine. It's once you get within a mile, it's terrible. You just want to leave your car parked on Lakeshore Drive and walk the rest of the way. It's so bad.
Joe, obviously,
So I don't,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, obviously, I like have the luxury. Like, I get to the stadium early when I cover Bears games, so I like have a parking spot. I obviously have the luxury of not dealing with traffic, but I still go like to Soldier Field for like concerts and whatever. And it's terrible. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
terrible experience. Like, there's no way to Uber in because like the Ubers are a little bit far away, and the surcharges are crazy. If you want to take
Yeah.
public transportation, you have to walk 2 miles to get to the stadium because there's no closed public transportation. Like, I don't know, it's kind of what you expect. Like, I love going to summer concerts on the lakefront. It's fun, like it looks great, like fireworks in the background, all that kind of stuff. But there are a lot of times where I just get so annoyed by the time I get to the concert because of getting there, and
Yes.
it just. And I understand, like, what are they supposed to do? That literally half of the access area is taken away because there's a lake on the other side. So like you're pretty limited in like where
Yeah.
you're able to kind of come in through. So I agree with all that. I also think for a majority of the fans, I don't know how much a majority of the fans really care because I don't think a majority of the fans go to games, right? I think
Well,
a
right.
majority of the fans are kind of like, I'm not paying to go to games anyways. A lot of people, I think, prefer watching games from the comfort of their own living room and can see all the angles. Like, I think exactly. Like, I think there are plenty of people like you who are just kind of like, okay, like, what difference does it make to me where they play? I'm just going to stay at home regardless of where they play. Sure, I think if they build a new stadium, they'll be like, all right, maybe I'll go check it out and see what the experience is like. But I don't think I think for a majority of Bears fans, I think it's more pride than anything else because I think a majority of Bears fans are obviously not going to these games in the first place.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. I mean, nothing like going to a live event, right? You could watch a concert on TV too, but there's nothing like being at the event.
Yeah,
Even if you're not a sports fan, my wife is not a sports fan, but she'll go to a live game. She'll go to a Blackhawks game. Well, the Blackhawks were good, and I wanted to go. There's nothing like a live event. But really, the truth is, hey, man, you got your 70-inch screen TV, your 60-inch TV, you got your bathroom right there, your fridge right there, your car's parked in your driveway. You don't have to pay for any of that. You get replay. I can watch the Caleb. I keep rewinding, pause it if I got to go to the bathroom or get something to eat or something to drink. There's a lot of convenience of watching the game, especially with TVs, the TVs today, with the 800 camera shots they've got today. So I if I had all the money in the world, would I want to be a Bear season ticket holder? Answer was no. I'd go maybe one game a year. That'd be cool. The fun, party with your friends, do the whole
sure.
tailgate thing. But as far as just watching a Bears football game and digesting it, give me my couch and my nice TV and my fridge that's 20 feet away.
Yeah, and even for me, like quite honestly, like a lot of the times I'm at these games, it's not just Soldier Field. Like they, obviously I don't have to tell you, like the press is not really a priority anymore in the modern NFL stadium. Usually we're tucked away in a corner or something like that with the new modern stadiums. Soldier Field actually isn't bad, but some of the new modern stadiums, it's kind of like, oh, it is very clear where you're trying, who was the priority here. But a lot of the times, like I will have to quickly look up at the TV screen to be like, what exactly happened? I think I
Yeah.
understood what happened from afar, but like I need to see exactly what happened. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's just kind of what the modern day is. A lot of people are just they have the comfort of being home, free food or cheaper food, I should say, comfort of being on being warm and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all this. But I agree with you. I think after 6 years, I think we'll finally get a decision here sooner rather than later, just because of the Indiana component of like them being like, listen, we're not doing this until you commit to us. So the Bears will, it seems like they'll have to, make a decision here, whether that's in the coming weeks or the coming months. I don't know if that means shovels in the ground in 2026.
Oh,
Quite
if they,
honestly, I don't even know like for how long they've had Arlington, I don't know if the Bears have actually done like the groundwork of like surveying the ground and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't know how much of that has been done. So I think maybe sure there'll be a ceremonial, like like the press opportunity. They got the great shovels, the little dirt that they ceremoniously throw over. But whether it comes to actually breaking ground and that kind of stuff, I that seems like that might be more of, if it does even happen there this year, that might be more of a 2027 thing.
That'd be terrible news. Honestly, I think let's go already. You missed your deadline of 2025, and if they have to go another year here, I mean it's February, we got time. But that'd be disappointing. But again, you have better knowledge of this than I do. That'd be disappointing if we go another full year without dirts in the ground.
I think it's possible that they can. I think if they get something approved here early in the year, they'll do the whole ceremony, pomp and circumstance, like throw the dirt around. But when it comes to like sufficient stuff, I think there's just a lot of groundwork that needs to happen before all that happens. Not that I'm this big construction guy or anything like that. Not that I'm like this big. I know all that kind of stuff. But all right, let's move on to the main focus. We're 26 minutes in, and we haven't even talked about the defense yet here, Joe. But let's get this thing going. So last week we reviewed the offense. This week we're going to review the defense, and obviously there's a lot to look at. We're going to go position by position, and we're going to start at that defensive line here. And I think that's the biggest question mark here, Joe, right? Obviously, because I feel like people forget, like the Bears did invest in the defensive line. They signed Dio Dangbo as their edge rusher. They signed Grady Jarrett as their defensive tackle. They drafted Shamar Turner with one of their second round draft picks. There's been an investment in the defensive line, and you saw, and for the most part, you didn't really get much out of it, right? Like Montez Sweat had 10.5 sacks, which was good to see. He improved in his run defense, but I mean, basically around him, I don't think you really saw much, right? Like I think Austin Booker flashed at times once he came back after missing the first 7 games of the season, but focusing on the defensive ends, Dio Dangbo got hurt after 8 or 9 games, but I think even before then, you didn't see much out of him. And so, what were your thoughts about how? Let's start with the defensive ends. How did you feel like that group did in creating any sort of pressure this year?
You didn't do the letter? Are you doing letter grades at some point or no?
I did not do letter grades.
Yeah.
But if you want to give one, go ahead.
If I had to give a letter grade as a group, I'd say D. I don't know if I'd go D minus, but probably a D. I think Montez was good. 10 sacks always stands down on a resume on your Pro Football Reference page anytime you get double-digit sacks, but he wasn't dominant. I'd probably give him a B. Probably a solid B for Montez. There was some inconsistency, but he clearly was their best pass rusher again, and it wasn't even close. Booker did flash. You're right. 10 games, 4.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. Gave away the sack on Jordan Love where he got penalized. So he should have had 5.5. We could all do the what if and buts and all that kind of thing. But he flashed. Am I right to say let's go into next season with Booker and Sweat as your DNs? No. I think you need another one. I don't know where it's going to come as you hear all these rumors about Hendrickson or Crosby. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off. So then how do you address it? Do you draft one? But you're drafting 25th. There's no Myles Garrett sitting at 25. And if there is a guy who's got potential and upside, you're not going to expect him to come in and get double-digit sacks as a rookie. So you're kind of, the window is now open, even if it was prematurely after what happened this past season. So it's win time now. You got to upgrade not only the defensive at defensive end, but at tackle. So I'd give Montez a B. Booker, that was encouraging because he missed, like at one point where we weren't even sure if he was going to play this season because he was on IR, and then the window was open. They still weren't activating him. So that was good. But even at the end, it wasn't good enough. And then the tackles, I know Grady Jarrett was brought, long-time guy in the league, the leadership, good guy, not good guy, great guy in the locker room, right? Beloved figure there. Much respect for Grady Jarrett. But what did you get out of him? 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss. You just didn't see it every week. Was hurt a little bit. I think missed 3 games. And then Andrew Billings, he serves a role. I get it. Those guys are fine. And then we're missing Javon Dexter, 6 sacks. He did play every game this year. He just hasn't. They expected more out of him. That was his 3rd year in the league. They got to get more. And I almost think they need to improve inside, Michael, more so than outside. And we know outside is a problem on the front. So it's a mess. That's got to be the number one concern. Besides figuring out who you're going to sign in the secondary, who you're going to bring back.
Yeah, let's look at it this a little bit different ways. I would agree. I think Montez actually had a really good season. I think Montez has also kind of shown you that he's not. I don't think anyone really can. I don't know if anyone had hopes of this, but he's not Myles Garrett. He's not Max Crosby. But I think the problem is that I've heard this argument a lot recently too, where I think both the Seahawks and the Patriots didn't have double-digit sack guys, right? And they're still able to pressure the quarterback. So I do wonder. There's been the argument of, do you need that double-digit sack guy? Myles Garrett is obviously with the Browns, and you can't blame Myles for the dysfunction of the Browns, but he hasn't been in the playoffs, right? Crosby played for the worst team, the Raiders, right? Like Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals, they didn't make the playoffs as well. So it is one of those things where I'm not trying to discredit the value. There's without a doubt, the number one most important position in football is the quarterback, but the second most important is the guy rushing the quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to devalue that, but I do wonder, maybe you don't need a top guy. Maybe you just need enough pressure where you have enough guys who are getting 7 sacks or 8 sacks. Yeah. And they just don't have that right now. Montez is doing it. Austin Booker's flashing it. Dio Dangbo, that was such an odd signing to me at the time last year, just for the money of it. I understand why Ryan Poles was kind of like, all right, I see flashes of this, let's give him a shot. The money seemed a lot though for flashes and for potential, right? So that'll be really interesting to see. And I think the other interesting thing was it became very clear that they were starting to experiment with putting Shamar Turner outside as opposed to inside. And I do wonder what that kind of would have looked like had he not injured himself against the Bengals, right? I think it would have been really interesting to see, all right, do you put Dio more in the inside because he was a really good run defender, and do you put Shamar on the outside and he can be your pass rusher? So those are big things to answer. So when it comes to the defensive end spot, you obviously always are looking for opportunities to bring in Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but if the asking price is 2 first-rounders and one of your top players, are you making that trade? Because quite honestly, I like Max Crosby a lot. I'm not trying to, besmirch his name or anything like that. He's one of the best pass rushers, but I don't think he's at the level of Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. And from what I heard from Jake Glazer and other insiders, is that the Raiders would want more than what the Packers gave up for Micah Parsons. And I just think that kind of puts you in a bad spot. At that point, I would just be like, all right, maybe you sign Trey Hendrickson, a veteran guy, you bring him in, and then you just draft guys, because you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you're getting rid of first round draft picks over the next few years, because that's not going to be sustainable. You're going to have to pay Caleb. You're going to have to pay all these offensive guys. And then what are you left with? You don't have any first round draft picks. And then this is kind of how you get into that position where, all right, what are we really drafting here? I mean, what are your thoughts about trading for a guy like Max Crosby versus drafting a guy?
This is real tough because part of it is, again, I'm like, I'm okay with Hendrickson. It always depends on the price. I'm not giving two
Sure.
first round picks for Max Crosby. I don't think you can do that. Even if you're planning to draft in the 20s, um, going forward the next couple of years. I don't know if you can do that. So maybe if you can get them on the cheap, I mean, the Raiders can say, we're going to ask for a package, more than Micah Parsons, all they want, but I don't know if they're going to get it. But for them, they got to be looking like they're not a year away. They have the first pick in the draft. To me, if I'm the Raiders, I'm unloading him for as much as I can get.
Yeah.
Right, and even if it's a first rounder, a second, a third, and then the following year or something like that, we'll see what they can get. But otherwise, I mean, the Bears have only one draft pick in each round. It's not like they've got multiple seconds. The Carolina Hall, that's all over, sadly.
Yeah.
They don't have multiple third round picks. They should with the Ian Cunningham thing, but that's another story. So you got to be careful here. I mean, you got to really nail it. You got to nail this 25th pick, assuming you're going to keep it, not trade. Maybe you trade it for a Crosby or Hendrickson or some other package like that. Then you got to nail that second round pick. And again, that's not coming till later in the second round too. But we talked about stacking good draft class. You could say they've got two in a row now, right? With the Caleb and Rome, and then everything this class did this past season. That's two in a row. Now you need three. But you got to nail these picks here. I mean, they can't afford to well, our first round pick, he'll be ready by week 5. He'll be up to speed. No, he's got to be ready. He's got to be ready day one. And same with your second round pick. You saw with Seattle with Imanori going early second round, what an impact he had for that defense at safety. So, and we have so much time to talk about what they will do at 25. We don't even know who's, that's why I kind of laugh at mocks when in the late 20s. And later, because you don't even know who's going to be on the board yet. I mean, you don't know what guy's falling, what guy's rising, or got picked early, whatever. So it's hard. It's different than when you're picking the top 5, 10. You kind of know these this little clump of players will be there. Will have a shot at one of these guys. You don't know what you're going to have at 25. So if there's a safety, to me, it's like if you're at 25 and the best guy on the board that you have ranked and you really believe in, if you're looking at the defense in general, if it's a safety, it's a tackle, it's an end, best available to me at that point of those position groups. So maybe it's a safety at 25, or it can't be. It's not it's not going to be a running back or a quarterback or a tight end or a wide receiver. But they really got to nail this pick at 25 and the second and the third. That third round guy's got to come in, and it might be all defense. And again, it depends on who's available, but they got to nail those picks. I've said it like 5 times, so that's all I got.
Yeah, I think it's also like, I know at 25 you're kind of like, what are you getting? But it is a deep edge rush group, and it is kind of a deeper defensive tackle group as well. So to me, I agree. Like, we'll get into the draft stuff later. To me, I think 25 is best player available territory. Like, you have needs on your defense, and you're going to have to address it. So I do think it is whatever fits your needs best, as opposed to a specific player. But listen, the edge, I'm just getting started into looking at some of these guys. Obviously, I'm like vaguely familiar with them from the college football season, but it is a deeper edge rush group. Now, the other problem is, there aren't going to be a lot of quarterbacks taken in this first round. It's just not I don't think it's a great crop after Mendoza this year. So I do think that hurts you a little bit, where not as many quarterbacks are going to be taken in the first round, and that's not going to push a lot of guys down to the 20s. But I think that I don't think you solve your problem with the first round pick, whoever it is, when it comes to your pass rush. But I do think that you can alleviate it, and I think it's a better solution than giving away your first-round picks for Max Crosby, because, quite honestly, you're going to have to get rid of a lot of contracts to get Max Crosby. And again, I'm not trying to say that he's not worth it. He's a fantastic player. He's an elite player. We saw it when the Bears were playing the Raiders last season. But it's just kind of one of those things where it's kind of like, all right, is what you're getting really worth the cost of it? Looking at the defensive tackles, Joe, I think, Andrew Billings is going to be a free agent. You got Grady Jarrett coming back. Trevon Dexter, the numbers are there sometimes with Trevon. It's just, for a second round pick, I don't think you're getting what you need out of him. And I think that's the thing that hurt. Like he plays well. He gets to the quarterback. He's consistent at times. But for a second round pick, him to be a game wrecker, right? I think that's the biggest thing with Jervon. And I think that's the tough thing about all this, where it's kind of like, it's not that Jervon is a bad player by any means. I'm not trying to say that, but for where he was picked in the second round and what he was supposed to be as your 3 technique guy, I just don't think you got that out of him. So I think that's kind of why, whether it's through free agency, but I think probably more in the draft, I think that the Bears will be looking at their defensive tackle and their 3 technique of the future.
I think you need 2 new starters. I mean, you can have Jervon. Jervon is still under contract for next year, right? It'll be year 4.
Yeah. It'll be a contract year for him.
Yeah, he can stick around, but you got to add at least 2 guys there. Not Turner. We barely saw him last year, and what little he started to show a little bit, fair to say, in the limited time he had.
Yeah.
So that's almost like another draft pick that a rookie. I mean, he's not a rookie, but we barely saw what he can do. Hopefully, he's good, but I would think he helps, and he too, like second round pick. It's not just like you're going to be a rotational player and be okay. You got to be better than okay. And then Odengbo, I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the season. Probably not. But you'll have him at some point. Does he make you better? Yes. Right? Is he overpaid? Yes. But he's on the roster. He's not going to be a cap casualty. All right. So you'll get him.
That's too much of a dead cap head. You can't do that.
Yeah. So you can bank on getting a little more productivity, knowing you'd have those guys on the field, Odengbo and Turner, but you still need 2 other dudes, and you're gonna have to find them through free agency, depending on what happens in the draft. So, but that's an issue, and I think that I've said it repeatedly or multiple times during the course of the season. I think they might need more help at that position inside than they do on the outside.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of approach it, because that was something that Dennis Allen preached when he took over last year and when he was talking to us during training camp, is his belief that pressure really comes from the inside and goes out, right? Like if you're able to get consistent pressure from the inside, that really opens things up for your edge rusher. So I am curious whether Dennis Allen is kind of like, all right, let's get the Florida guy Parker or the Ohio State guy Valentine. Like maybe they go after those type of guys and he builds his defensive line off of that, because I don't even think, obviously things can happen with trades. Last year, we didn't expect the Bears to trade for Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, right? So maybe you can do something with that, so some sort of trade with some guys on an expiring contract or a cap casualty, right? Like that happens every year in the NFL. But I do think that the Bears will probably invest a lot of their defensive line with their first 3 picks at this point. And yeah, and you mentioned Odengbo and Shamar Turner. Like those guys got injured midway through the year, so it'll be interesting to see when they're back on the field. They might not come back until training camp, and so for Shamar Turner, that's again another lost offseason, right? Like he loses another offseason. He's forced to kind of come back from injury while at the same time trying to figure things out. So that's kind of a tough spot to expect him to be a week 1, a playmaker. And for Odengbo, it's the same thing, right? Like he was injured mid-year. It takes some time to get after it. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of look like Big Cheese kind of chiming in here. Guys, the monster interior would make Sweat and Booker look like all pros. I don't know if I'll go as far as all pros, but I agree with the sentiment that your inside plays a big factor in how your outside looks. And I agree with that. So I do think that could be a major reason why the Bears are focused on the interior of the defensive line as opposed to the edge rushers. I could very easily see Ryan Poles being like, Sweat got 10.5 sacks last year without much pressure from the inside. Austin Booker is flash. We put money into Odengbo. We moved Shamar Turner to the outside, and then we focused on the interior of the defensive line. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what Ryan Poles does.
Yeah, and every team in the league talks about depth, rotating guys in. That's everyone does now. That's probably going to weigh, probably going to have to be the way you do it, unless you get Crosby or Hendrickson. So I don't know. The other thing too, with if you got Hendrickson, you've talked about this all year. You're going to pay. You'd have a lot of money in your DNs if you go out and get Hendrickson and or Crosby, or
That
not
is a
both,
lot of
but
money.
one of them.
Yeah.
So and then you with Montez too. So I don't know. To me, I'd have no problem with them going defense, defense, defense in the first with the first three picks. Wouldn't that be nice? Because you'd expect those guys to come in and be players and certainly help us, unless we're taking guys who are in, or, have an injury pass or something like that. And but bringing, they're going to have to. They know it. I mean, we're not saying anything that no one knows. They got to fix this defense, because the defense too, which we've talked about all year, how you get down early, you can't get off the dang field. Now there's more pressure on Caleb, and you're wondering why the Bears have 7 points late in the first quarter or whatever, and Caleb's numbers are bad because the defense can't get off the dang field. So if you improve that, I think you'll see a better offense and maybe not so much pressure on the offense, because they're going to be getting the ball back soon.
All right, Joe, let's move on over to linebackers, who I feel like them and the cornerbacks dealt with the most amount of injuries this season.
Yes,
I
for
mean,
sure.
it was just an injury plague season for that group. Obviously TJ Edwards missed a bunch of games. Then you had Tremaine Edmonds miss a bunch of games. Noah Sewell dealt with some injuries. It's really interesting because I think a big thing that the Bears are going to have to do is decide what they're going to do with Tremaine Edmonds, because I thought Tremaine Edmonds was actually having, I don't know if I would say a career year, but definitely his best year with the Bears as at the weak side linebacker spot. I thought the Bears unlocked something with him. I think they finally put him in a position to use his length and his speed as a weapon. He was creating interceptions. He was getting after the quarterback. He was creating tackles for loss. But I think the problem with Tremaine is he's got a big salary cap spot where he is at, what is it at? He's got the 8th highest spot at 17.4, and he will only have a 2.4 million dead cap hit. So, Joe, to me, it kind of feels like a situation where I think Tremaine is great for that locker room. He's great to deal with as a guy. I thought he was having a really good season last year, but I do wonder whether the Bears are kind of like, listen, we got to make some tough decisions this year. And Tremaine might be one of those guys where you kind of let him go early to the, as a courtesy to him as a veteran, you let him go early so he can evaluate the free agent market. And maybe you just try to fix the linebacker spot with one of those top draft picks.
Yeah. I mean, every year it seems like you've got to let go of a guy that you like, is a good player, fans like him, media like him, good player, but it's just a business. And he would seem like a pretty good candidate to be released. But he was having a good year. He had the picks, he ended up with 4, and then he got hurt. But he had some games where he was like really exposed to. But as an athlete, you've stood next to him. He's freakish, right? He's like 6'6". He just looks like he could tackle 3 guys at one time with that wingspan. And he's, I would imagine quarterbacks like have a hard time sometimes throwing around him, because he's so rangy. So if they were all making the same amount of money, would I want him back on my football team? Yeah, for sure. But he's making a lot of money, and maybe you could put that money elsewhere to improve your defense. And it would stink, but it is what it is. So he might be. I think he's a pretty obvious, or a likely obvious candidate. Not that he's going away, but to be released.
Yeah, we'll see what the Bears decide to do, but he definitely is a candidate for that, just based on where they're at with the salary cap and where things kind of look. So he's got 1 year left on his contract. It's crazy. I think he's only 27, so it's not like he's old by any means.
Right.
Like, he's still probably in the prime of his career. But it just, the way the things have worked out at this point, you have different priorities, and I think you can fill in the linebacker spot a little bit easier than you can the other spots. TJ Edwards, Joe, you cursed them from the beginning of the season. We'll put that all on you. But he dealt with injuries. He fought through injuries. He signed a contract extension before the offseason. I would imagine that he's back. I don't think he'll be a casualty. And Noah Sewell will be back as well. The only really free agent that you kind of have to deal with in this room is going to be, do you bring DeMarco Jackson back?
I would.
Or, it depends on what I think he opened some stuff up for you, but I think I would bring back DeMarco Jackson, and then I would probably just use one of my top defensive. I wouldn't use a first round pick, I don't think, but I would use a second or a third round pick on the linebacker.
Yeah, I don't know what the linebacker class looks like in the draft, but if there was just a dude there, for whatever reason, linebackers were falling. Again, I don't know what run there's going to be. I don't know what position run there's going to be early in the draft. We don't know. Like you said, it's not a great quarterback class. Running backs, they don't go in the first round or anything. It's typically linemen. So maybe if there's just best player available and it's a linebacker from a defensive standpoint, I have no problem with them taking a linebacker. Linebackers have kind of fallen behind. Maybe they've been this way for a long time. Interior guys, edge rushers, corners, and then the linebackers kind of like the forgotten dudes. But if there's that guy, I'd have no problem with them taking it's Chicago Bears, man. You got to have a great linebacker, right? So that'd be fine with me.
What are your thoughts on Ruben Hippolyte? Ruben, obviously the fourth round
Yeah.
pick for the Bears. He only played in 7 games despite injuries. He dealt with injuries toward the end of the year, but a lot of those did not plays were inactives. It just seemed like, I don't know, they obviously listened. The story was great. He obviously wasn't invited to the combine. The Bears kind of surprised him and took him in the 4th round. Those moments are kind of the moments, Joe, where I'm kind of like, you got to take a flyer on guys sometimes, but it just didn't work out for Ruben. That's not to say it's not going to work out this year with the whole offseason and that kind of stuff, but he didn't really make an impact for you at all at the 4th round spot.
No, it was a reach. Yeah. And again, you're not going to hit on them all, but
no,
when you're missing on, if you want to call Dexter a miss, Zach Pickens, this stuff matters. And the Hippolyte pick was criticized. It wasn't just by one or two people who cover the draft. All the guys who are the draftniks and guys who cover it said it was a reach, and it's looking like a reach. He's fast. That's one thing that I think the Bears need on defense. They need more speed. Every team needs speed. Every league, every sport, you need speed. He's got that. But is he a football player? I don't know. And then I'm not ready to call him a bust or anything.
No, yeah, it's just 1 year. Yeah.
But you'd like to think he comes in next year, assuming he's healthy, with a legit shot to claim a starting linebacker spot. If he's not, if this is Kiran Amagaji, project, that's bad. It's a bad look. That's why I think we need to see more from Ryan Poles. You know what you're doing on the defensive side when it comes to drafting players? Because it's not, your resume is not stellar there. So, I almost forgot about Hippolyte, but that's an important player going forward.
And it will be interesting to see because, listen, Sewell had his Achilles injury in week 17 against the 49ers. He probably will not be back until late into the year at this point. I'm not, I don't know exactly what the prognosis is and that kind of stuff, but a late injury like that causes guys to miss portions of the season next year. So you're going to need a linebacker. If you do get rid of Edmonds, you pretty much only have TJ Edwards back as a starter. So you're going to have to address that room, whether that's elevating Ruben Hippolyte, whether that's bringing back DeMarco Jackson, whether that's drafting a guy. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bears are doing there at the linebacker spot. All right, Joe, let's talk about the Bears' most injured group, and that was the cornerback room. And it's funny because I guess if there's any position you would want injuries to happen to, it probably would be the cornerback room because we saw the depth. But Jalen Johnson, listen, I give Jalen all the credit in the world for coming back. It's very clear that he wasn't in game shape to be back there in December, but he did come back for his team and he did play for them. Kyler Gordon dealt with a bunch of different injuries. Focusing on those two guys, obviously they're going to be back. You invested a lot of money in him. I'm really interested to see what they can kind of look like next season with the whole off season to kind of get back into peak physical form, because it's very clear even when those guys did play, they were a shell of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a report last couple of days about whether Jalen might be a cap casualty. Now, he's making a lot of money, like 25 million
He is,
next
yeah.
year. 7 million, I think they would save in the cap as on a cap hit if they release him before the 13th, the start of the new football year. It potentially be more come the summer. It's a tough one because Jalen, I look it up. I don't have all the guys' ages memorized. He'll be 27 in April. So like Tremaine Edmonds, it's not like he's done. But
No,
as we've seen with corners in this league, like Trayvon Diggs, I mean, you could fall off the map pretty quickly here. Eddie Jackson, remember, like Eddie Jackson was the dude, and all of a sudden, like Eddie's not good at football anymore. And boom, he's still a young guy. Eddie Jackson's probably not even 30, right? Or so, whatever. But point being, you can fall off quickly here. So Jalen, is that where we're at? Because this was a lost year. And if you start losing speed in this league, guys will pass you up really quickly. And Jalen's productivity just was not there. He played, I think it was seven games, I think. If I had that right, if I looked at that correctly. Didn't seem like 7. And he probably wasn't 100% in any of those.
not
So,
even close. I don't even know if you could say that he was 50% at any of those games.
yeah. So then the question becomes, can you get to 100% or as close to 100% you can after playing in this league for 5 years? I don't know if anyone who's playing in the league that many years is 100%
Sure.
ever again, right? So how good is he? Because if you start losing a step in this league, all of a sudden he's not the same Jalen Johnson. But if it's the Jalen from 2 years ago or 2024, absolutely. We went into last season saying he's their best player on defense, right? On the team,
On the
because no
team.
one on offense had stood out.
Yeah.
So, but things happen quickly. But if you release him or you move on from him, now what do then who replaces him?
Yeah.
Then you got to address the whole Nashawn Wright situation. You're going to let him walk. We can talk about that soon or now or whatever. But I like Jalen. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But
It'll be
got to
interesting
get
to
more.
see. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Jalen, especially like I think they have the luxury of seeing him every day, obviously working out and coming back and that kind of stuff. So they probably have a good understanding of whether they will probably have a good understanding whether they think he can get back to the level that he was playing at. I think listen, Jalen told you plenty of times in December, there's just no way I can get to 100% at this point of the year. Like he's just going to need a whole offseason to get back to who he was. So Ryan Poles will need to decide whether he wants to take that belief in Jalen, right? Like whether he wants to be like, you can get back to the player you was, because when Jalen's 100%, he's the best, if not one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Like he's a playmaker. He can cover anyone. He does a great job. And that's been without a pass rush, right, for most of his career. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with him. Kyler Gordon obviously is your future slot cornerback. He's a playmaker. Hoping that he can kind of have a whole off season there. Obviously the story of the year was Nashawn Wright, obviously career year guy that I don't even know if we talked about him last year when they signed him. I doubt we did it. I don't even think I did a story on it when they signed
No.
him. And I was honestly surprised that he wasn't comeback player of the year or anything like that. But I do think that he's going to, and rightfully so, he's going to get he's going to get money. He's a guy who has played for 3 teams for in 5 years. Joe, are you going to pay Nashawn, or are you kind of like, thank you for what you did, go get your money somewhere else? Like, where are you at with this? And do you believe in Al Harris enough where you're kind of like, all right, maybe Zay Frazier fits that role? Like, obviously, we say Frazier hasn't played an entire season for personal matters. Like, I guess where are you at when it comes to making a decision with Shawnee?
This is a tough one. They should change the award to breakout season of the year, breakout season for a player, because that's what he was. Because he really, he just toiled in Dallas, spent all year last year on the Vikings practice squad, for crying out loud. You can see why he was drafted in the second round. When you're that tall, that length, you saw how it played out with some of the interceptions he had going up against, the Steelers game with DK Metcalf. What was the other one in the end zone? We had a couple of nice picks where the length, really, the athleticism and length really came into play.
Yeah, the one in
And
Minnesota against Jordan Addison, that
that's
was
the one.
that was a great one.
The Minnesota one with Jordan Addison. Um, I know he was exposed a little more. Even early in the season, he was exposed. Then the picks started to come, the big plays. After he had that pick six in the season opener against Minnesota, in the end, I don't know if he was just hurt or just like turning back into Nashawn Wright, but I like him. Unless I don't know if someone's going to throw 4 years and just a ton of money at him. If that's the case, you got to move on because there's still questions of how good he is, but I like him. I'm tending, maybe it's tough doing this. I'm sure you're finding this out because when you get to know the player a little bit, they're nice guys. It takes a special reporter or columnist to just say, I know the guy's a great dude. I don't care. Depends on when he can play football because he's a likable guy and you root for him.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, and right, he's like a nice young man. You want to see great things happen to him. I want to see him in a Bears uniform again. Maybe it's just sentimental on my part, but I saw enough. The range, I like the tall corners. I just like that. I want to bring him back. Is he going to get 5 picks again and force 2 fumbles and strip Jalen Hurts again if he gets a chance again? I don't know. I think he'll continue to make plays though. And as long as you're not having to pay him too much, and what's too much, I don't know. I want him back. What do you think?
Obviously it depends on the money. I don't. If someone throws a bunch of money at him, go for it. You deserve it, guy. Like you had a career year, you've been through it. Not only your NFL career, your entire life at this point. Like his journey from a JUCO to, Oregon State and all that kind of stuff. Like it's been a hell of a journey. So if someone's willing to give you generational money, do it. I am never going to begrudge a person or a player for doing that. But if the money's equal, like maybe I don't know. I agree. I think teams picked on him. I don't know if he has the speed to keep up in the slot sometimes. I don't know if he has the speed to keep up with other guys. And like you said, injuries and stuff, but his playmaking abilities are just great. He had the playmaking ability to go into the tush push and get that fumble from Jalen Hurts. He had he was in the right spot to get that critical fumble recovery against the Commanders that set up the go-ahead field goal against them in Week 6. Like, you can't teach that kind of stuff. And part of me is kind of like, Joe, what are you doing with Tyreek Stevenson? He is entering his last year after a former second-round pick. It's really interesting, Joe, because as you saw toward the end of the year, as Jalen got healthy, it was very clear Jalen and Nashawn were getting all the snaps. Tyreek didn't play at all in Week 18 against the Lions. Now, you did see more of him in the playoffs once they were doing that, shuffling stuff. So, I mean, what are you doing with Tyreek? Are you giving him an extension? Are you having him play out? They've got a lot of decisions to make in this cornerback room.
I'm not giving him an extension. Like, who would you rather start opposite Jalen? Assume Jalen Johnson is back and healthy. I'd rather have Nashawn Wright than Tyreek. Tyreek's under contract, right? Be going into his fourth year already for him. Yeah. But he's another one like hasn't lived up. Second round pick. That's supposed to be a stud player, and he hasn't been. He's shown flashes, especially early last season. But I think I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Nashawn. And you're right, the speed. I mean, there's a reason why he'd been toiling in Dallas, Nashawn. That's why, like when they signed him, like you said, we didn't talk about it. Hey, no, he was just basically signed as a depth piece. Maybe he not even a guarantee he makes the roster. And then this wonderful story, which I don't think we'll forget for a long time. Hopefully, that's a guy 20 years from now. If I'm still here, you'll be here. You're like Nashawn Wright, man. What that dude, right? I don't know. But the ability to make plays, it's just like with all these guys. Like like we were seeing, like with like what we weren't seeing from Odangbo. Where are you? How come when I watch the TV, the game on the TV, I don't even notice you're on the field? You notice when Deshaun Wright was on the field, not always for good things, but more good things than negative things.
That'll be a
He
major
plays.
thing that Ryan Poles has to decide. Obviously, guys like Terrell Smith are going to come back.
Yeah.
He was a key backup for you that didn't play. CJ Gardner Johnson, great guy that was a great signing. I remember at the time everyone was like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, are we sure we want to bring CJ Gardner Johnson in? He played his role perfectly. He did a good job toward the end of the year. Especially he gave them that impact player when Kyler was gone at the beginning of the year, toward the middle of the year. So that worked out pretty well as well. And for Zay Frazier, we'll see what it looks like. He's back with the team. He's going to work out. He's going to have an off season to work things out and get into the building. So we'll see what that kind of looks like, but some interesting choices here in the cornerback room. Not as big.
Real quick, I'm sorry. Zay Frazier, Michael, is to me almost an X factor here. Like, do we even know how good he is? And he was practicing with the team, to be clear. He was not, right? Not practicing.
He was in the building. He just wasn't practicing.
Okay. Do we know much about him? Like, is there actually hope for him, or is he just a guy that we'll play him if we have 6 other guys hurt? But
if you remember, I think the last time we saw him was the rookie minicamp. Like, that was the last time I think we saw Zay Frazier.
It's like we really don't know what you got there.
No.
We know he's tall. We know he had a great senior season. I forgot where he attended.
UTSA.
That's it. Thank you. So, like, can he be a player next year? Can he be next year's Deshaun Wright? I have no idea. Maybe no one does. Reporters, anyway, right?
Yeah, I think, and it'll be interesting because Al Harris was a big reason why the Bears drafted Zay Frazier. So I do wonder if Al Harris is like, love Shawnee, go get your money. I think we can develop Zay Frazier and he can be an impact player for us. Maybe that is what they do. It'll be interesting to see. But a lot of X factors in that cornerback room and a lot of things to look forward to this offseason. All right, Joe. Biggest question mark here is the safety room. Obviously, the Bears have no safeties under contract amongst their major contributors. Kevin Byard had a career year, earned his 3rd All-Pro, 3rd Pro Bowl honor. He led the league with 7 interceptions. Jaquan Brisker. Let's start with Kevin Byard. Career season, Joe. It seems like there's mutual interest, amongst both guys. I think it seems like Kevin is more. I'm not trying. Like, he's gonna take care of his family. He said that he has a duty to his family to take care of them. But reading in between the lines, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes less money to go with the Bears because he wants to win with the Bears.
I want him back. I know, again, I had to look up his age too. I roughly knew what it was. He'll be 33 in August. So certainly he's this guy, 10 years in the league, he's got 36 career interceptions. That's not a Hall of Fame resume, but it's a pretty dang good, great career for him. I think he's got more left. I think he's savvy enough. We saw it last year. We're not expecting 7 picks again in 2026, wherever he ends up going. But I want him back just for his locker room presence. I think you're going to need a veteran guy there. Almost sounds like Jaquan is gone. They're not going to re-sign him. They got to draft a safety here. I wanted a safety last year. High. I think you got to go get one in these top with these your top 3 picks here, rounds 1, 2, or 3. You got to get one, regardless if you bring them both back or none back. But I want Kevin Byard back.
Yeah, are you bringing Jaquan Brisker back? He answered our question about whether he can play all season, and Jaquan. I don't want to say he wasn't bad by any means. He flashed at times. He had a great game against the Rams in the divisional round. I feel like that was his best game of the season. But there are also times I feel like where there was miscommunication or coverage was wrong or, different kind of stuff. So I guess if the money is a lot, are you bringing Jaquan Brisker back? Amongst the two, I think you probably bring back Kevin Byard at a lower contract, right? And then you probably just draft a guy late in the 1st round or in the 2nd round.
Yeah, or sign someone via free agency. Jaquan's another one. You root for him, right? 17, like if you're saying we're not expecting Byard to have 7 interceptions again. Or can you really expect Jaquan to play all 17 games again next season? Credit to him. because I would have bet a lot of money saying there's no way he's playing 17 games at the start of the season when we were looking at that kind of thing. But, and ultimately the production just hasn't really been there for years, even though he flashed at times as a rookie in his sophomore year, his second year in the league was pretty good. And you're starting to see it. But I don't know if you've just seen enough there. And with the concussions, it's not like the concussions, that's in the past now. We're never have to worry about that again with him. It is there still. I don't know if you want to pay him a lot, but he's another guy, nice young man. You hope for the best. He's been a good Chicago Bear, but I don't think both are coming back. And if the money's right and makes sense, not necessarily that it has to be a team friendly deal. Like, I don't know who's going to give Bayer like a 3 or 4 year deal. I
think Bayard is definitely going to get just because of his age. I just think a lot of teams are hesitant about it, and I agree with you. I think Jaquan Brisker is he's great to talk to. He'll give you honest answers. Like, he's a really good guy.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think with where you're at with the salary cap, it just feels like a situation where you bring back Kevin Byard, you let Jaquan Brisker kind of get his money, let someone else kind of figure stuff out, and then you just it's a tough roster decision. I don't know if I'm reading between them, if I'm reading too much to it, but when Ryan Poles was asked the safety room, he made sure to say something about Kevin Byard. He didn't say anything about Jaquan Brisker, and I don't know if that's looking way too into it. That could just be like whatever. I don't think that dictates everything, but I do think that there's very strong mutual interest between the Bears and Kevin Byard. And listen, I don't think they also underestimate what he brings to the room. He's that leader. I know he wasn't technically a season captain or whatever, but he's a major leader in that room. And I think the Bears value that. And Kevin's also a great person to talk to in the media. Obviously, he won our Good Guy Award for always being there and talking to us. And he's a great guy to deal with. So obviously, personally, would love to have him back there as someone who kind of represents the team.
How's he not a captain?
I didn't know. I didn't get that. Unless I'm completely wrong. I don't think he was voted a season captain. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that changes. Maybe he wanted a more subdued role and plays that role. I don't know. But that was an interesting. That was interesting at the beginning of the year. But yeah, that's the safety room, and we'll obviously talk about it moving forward here. I want to talk about special teams really quickly here, Joe. We're an hour 11 into this thing, but there are some special team stuff we got to talk about. The biggest one is obviously Cairo. Obviously, I'm mixed about this because Cairo had his most inconsistent season with the Bears. He made 83% of his kicks, but I don't think you don't beat the Packers the first time without Cairo Santos. I don't think you do it the second time either. He was a 6 for 6 in both games. He battled the circumstances. We've had our ad nauseum conversation about Cairo Santos throughout the season, Joe, but where are you at with him? Are you kind of a guy who's like, to me, it's kind of like you see guys make 60-yard field goals, but then you see them miss 40-yard field goals. So it's kind of like, would you rather have a consistent guy who knows how to play at Soldier Field, or would you rather have that big leg who is that consistent?
Well, Caleb's the most polarizing guy in the team, but not even close.
Maybe but DJ Moore is a close second at this
You're
point.
Right. And then it'll be Cairo probably because, and you know me, at the start of the year, like, I'm done with this guy. Yeah, he can't kick it from 40 yards. It's too far. But then you saw like the Green Bay game, the second game and the games where he had to be clutch. I never felt like there might be a game I'm missing where he just, the moment was too big for him. He's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
But it never seemed like, and that matters, especially if you're thinking about playing postseason ball. Would I rather have out a 44-yarder Cairo or some rookie? I can't believe I'm saying this. Or a rookie that could bomb it from 65 yards out. I don't know. Maybe you find no one does this in the league, so I'm an idiot for even suggesting it. You go with two kickers, you got him, and then you find the guy who's
whoa. We're not doing a two-kicker conversation.
Get rid of one of those linebackers that don't play anyway. No, they wouldn't.
We were debating whether this team is going to have 3 quarterbacks, but you're willing to have 2 kickers. What is going on here?
I know. Forget I said that. Delete that from the podcast. I'm just being silly here, I think. But it is nice to know that all you have to do with some of these teams, like, is get to the 40 and you're in field goal range, where it's not the case with the Bears. It's still 1970s. I'm surprised Cairo doesn't kick like with the toe, like the old, the old guys in the 70s, because that's how short his distance is. But this is a tough one. But I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I think I want him back.
Yeah, I'm kind of, you always evaluate what you can get, right? You obviously are going to look at what's available, but listen, I think the Bears love Cairo. He was obviously a captain. Special teams coordinator Richard Hightower only sings his praises. And I think, listen, I think Cairo showed you that he can deal with resilience. He didn't have a good, like, he dealt with a quad injury midway through the year. Jake Moody was breathing down his neck,
Yep.
and he responds from a missed kick he made the game-winning kick against the Minnesota Vikings, right? Like, people don't talk about this enough, and I had to look this up. If the Bears lose that game to the Vikings win the NFC North, and the Bears aren't in the playoffs. That's how insane of
Wow.
that's how tight things were in the NFC North this year. So Cairo came clutch for you in different situations, and I think I would much rather have that than the guy who can make a 60-yarder once or twice. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of one of those
Yeah.
situations where it's kind of like I'd rather have the guy who has been there and done that, as opposed to the guy who, cool, he can make a 60-yard field goal, but then he misses from 45 because he doesn't know how to deal with the wind in Chicago, right? Like, it's one of those situations. So um, that'll be interesting to see. Torrey Taylor, obviously, I he had a fine season. I love the guy. I think he's really good to talk to. He'll give you some good answers too. But again, for a fourth round pick, a punter, I don't feel like he made enough bang bang plays. I thought Devin Duvernay had a really good season. Obviously, he had that big return against the Vikings. Would you bring Duvernay back, or are you evaluating what's available out there? And if you can't find anything better, then you bring Duvernay back.
Well, as much as everyone loves the home run, and he didn't have any kick returns for touchdowns. Again, I said it a lot during the past several months here. He's not Velus Jones, and honestly, when you're especially punts, you need a guy to catch the ball. Just catch the ball. Don't let it hit the ground and it bounces, 15 yards back and you lose more field position. Don't do stupid stuff. You just can't have having Devin Hester is the bonus. That's the best example, right? That was just, you don't need him to be Devin returning kicks for touchdowns or punts. You can't have him dropping the ball. Just give me catch the ball, advance it forward, don't run backwards, and he's not going to cost you a lot of money anyway. I would
No.
absolutely bring back Duvernay if they find a flyer, deep guy, in the draft, late in the draft or free agency. That's just a burner. Maybe you want to give him a shot. I don't want to see Luther Burden returning kicks. I think he's too valuable. I don't need him getting hurt. Returning a punt. But I'd have no problem bringing back Duvernay. Just give me a guy who doesn't mess it up. And then if you have a few big moments like he did, that's just none of that's as a bonus because you need those plays too. But this should be a pretty easy decision to me if I were the Bears. Bring him back.
Yeah, I feel like I would just bring everyone back. Special teams came big for the Bears a lot of times last year, whether it was Jake Moody stepping up to make kicks, whether it was Josh Blackwell blocking the field goal against the
Yeah.
Raiders, or getting the onside kick against the Packers. Like, special teams came in big a lot of times for the Bears this season. So I would definitely bring that group back. None of them, I would bring Devin Duvernay back, keep Cairo. And just kind of evaluate what's out there. You're always obviously looking to improve based on what's out there, but if I don't necessarily think subtraction is going to be a big addition for this team.
Yeah, and not go all Patrick Manley, but the long snapper is a free agent, right? Scott Daly.
Yeah, he is. I would bring him back. I would assume that the Bears would bring him back too.
And he didn't make any mistakes, right? That's one of those guys, like, it's almost like a guard, like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
I think if Scott Daly knocked on anyone's door, I don't think anyone would know who he is. But that's a guy like we didn't hear about him, which is fantastic news. But they'll bring him back too, right? I mean, he's not going to cost you $20 million or anything.
I would assume so. I think they like him. Obviously, they got Luke Elfin there, a guy who's been on the practice squad. But I have never heard a bad thing about Scott Daly, and so I would assume that he's back. He's not going to break the bank. He's not the reason why. He's not a salary cap issue for you at all. Let's just put it that way.
Exactly.
All right, Joe. Well, we're an hour 20 into this thing, so that's a good time to wrap things up. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the YouTube live stream. Great to have all your comments. Make sure you give us a like there while you're here and subscribe. That's the best way to help us grow, but also the best way to know when we're going to be live during the off season. Thank you to all the support on Facebook as well. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you rate us and subscribe as well. Really appreciate your support there. All right, guys, our review series is over. Looking toward the off season. The Combine is actually 10 days away, so we'll do a Combine preview episode for you folks toward the end of next week, and then we'll obviously talk to you guys from the Combine as well. So even though we're not talking to you guys twice a week, we'll still be talking to you guys plenty here during the off season. That there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So for Joe and I, thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday morning. Make sure you guys enjoy the warmer weather, and we will talk to you folks down the road.